Hello and welcome back to Behind the Faders, the channel where we talk about all aspects of live sound mixing and live sound in general. And if you're interested in that kind of content, then please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot and it's free for you. So today I want to talk about sound checks. Maybe slaughter some misconceptions and maybe change around some routines that you might have that everybody does because everybody does it. No other reason than that. So I walk you through the entire process, how to perform a quick and effective sound check. To not let it become too complex, I will only cover the front of house part of it. We can imagine a scenario where you are a local sound engineer in a club and you have a band coming in and that band brings an in-ear rack. So you don't have to do anything with monitors, they just feed their signal through to you. It's a pretty common scenario these days, and it becomes more and more, so it's not unrealistic. First of all, let's talk about a few mindset aspects, so the way you mentally approach the sound check. And here's the first point where I think everybody does it because everybody does it. So when you go through your signals for the very first time, like in solo, every single channel, then I have a feeling that most people approach this process in a way that they will now dial in this channel so perfectly they will never have to come back to it afterwards, which of course is wrong and will never ever happen. You will have to come back to most of your channels multiple times. So you don't have to get it perfect the first time. For example, you will never know how much attack on the kick drum you will need to make it cut through the mix later on until you have the entire band playing. For example, I once learned a good analogy for this, which means we shave a sound to the end result, which was about studio productions, but it goes for live sound just as well. So what do I mean by that? When you shave your face, and I know from YouTube that I have no female visitors so far. I hope that's going to change. But so everybody watching this knows what I'm talking about. When you shave your face, you don't take a little section of it and then you shave it in all four directions. And then you take the next section and shave it in all four directions. That's not how you do it. You shave your entire face in one direction and then into the next direction, and then in the third direction, and then in the fourth. That's how we do it, right? Or at least that's how it should be done, although my wife tells me every day that I'm the worst when it comes to shaving. So the same thing goes for a mix. So when you go through it the very first time, you get everything somewhere in the ballpark, okay? And then when the entire band plays, then you go over it and over it and over it and shave it until you get the final result of the sound check. That's the way you should approach it. Number two is closely related to that. I see all the time that when people come to a channel and bring the fader up, I can see how ready they are now to wolf down on the EQ and the dynamic section and everything there is to play with, because they're convinced the signal will need it. Why don't you approach this with giving every signal the possibility to not needing anything? So bring the fader up and listen for a few seconds, and then maybe give it a low cut. And maybe that is enough, at least for now. Because, like, let's say you have a guitar that sounds a little bit harsh. I'm not talking about painfully harsh. If that happens, then it's most of the time a bad placement of the mic. But it's a little harsh. But maybe this little harshness is exactly what this guitar needs to cut through the mix later on. So leave it alone. And I can hear saying, yeah, but what about the kick drum? You can never leave a kick drum alone. Well, first of all, if you're working with a folk or jazz band, so something very acoustic and natural, this might well be the case. But when it comes to pop, rock, metal, anything like that, I never said always start with a flat EQ, right? You might have dialed in your default kick drum EQ, and with that default EQ, you still bring the fader up and listen for a second, and maybe that's enough for now. It spares you a lot of time, so give every signal the chance to not needing anything applied to it but low cut. Number 3, also related to that. Don't be under the misconception that a long and extensive sound check will save you from any work during the show. It's not going to happen. First of all, we all know how different the sound can be between sound check and show. If you're in a room, then the room changes with people coming in, different humidity, lots of parameters. And even if you're outside, another difference is now the band comes on stage and now they have gig adrenaline. So that we all play a little harder and louder. So things will change. And nothing you can ever do during soundcheck will stop that process. It's gonna happen. So there's really no need for an extensive soundcheck just to have less work during the show. Let me tell you a story about that. My mentor when I started was Achim Schulze. Achim Schulze is and always was the front of house engineer of the Scorpions. With some on and off time in between, which gave other engineers like myself the chance to mix Scorpion shows. But he's been there from the very beginning and is there now. And he once told me, actually, I only do sound check to make the band confident. And trust me, I don't really need it. Of course, this is somebody who is with the band, but just to get the mindset behind it. And I heard the same story from another perspective. I think I told you before that I was lucky enough to work with Metallica for a while. And Big Mick, their famous front of house engineer for decades, told me the story of the Monsters of Rock back in '86 when he was watching Achim doing soundcheck. He said the guy was only listening to his kick drum, to his snare, and to his main vocal for a while. That was it for soundcheck. And the sound he was getting for the show was amazing. Now, again, this is, of course, somebody who knows a band inside out, knows all the gain settings for all the channels and all the default EQs. That doesn't really apply to somebody who's a local sound engineer and has a band come in. It's just about this mindset. The soundcheck is there to get you somewhere in the ballpark, and the show is the real job. And the show is what you're getting paid for. You're not getting paid to do a soundcheck, right? So now let's dive in the actual process. And here comes another point. Usually it seems to be written in stone that you wait for everybody to set up and then you start the soundcheck with the kick drum. Now, the problem is the drummer has the most amount of work to do setting up, so he will be most likely the last person to finish a setup. I mean, okay, you might have local bands where everybody comes in separately, so the drummer might show up well ahead of time for a setup. But if in a normal scenario that you have a band that travels together in a van, so in this scenario, the drummer will be the last one finishing his setup. So why not check everybody else who's already finished and mic'd? Now you might argue, yeah, but I'm also in charge of doing the miking and I now have to kind of run back from front of house to the stage all the time, putting mics up and then running back, checking something. Well, most of you nowadays will have a tablet controlling their desks. So you just bring that tablet with you on the stage. And in between setting up mics, you can just, and while you wait for the drummer to finish his setup, you can just get in front of the stage with a tablet and bring all the singers, like I said, into the ballpark. So by the time the drummer is ready for your microphones, everybody else is done. And now comes another big one when it comes to checking drums. The usual procedure is you ask the drummer to play the kick drum, you check the kick drum, boom, 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 then you snap the snare, tock, 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 and then check the hi-hats, and so on. And I see people even bringing like the snare fader back down again after they check the snare and listening only to the higher channel, bring it back down again, listen only to tom 1, bring it back down again. And now they listen to the overheads while the drummer is only playing the cymbals. And now they ask the drummer to play the entire kit, bring up all the faders, many times finding out that everything they've done before is now in the toilet because now they have all the spill, all the crosstalk between the mics, and it sounds completely different, and they have to start all over again while the drummer is playing. Let me show you a better way. I usually asked the drummer to play the entire kit from the first second. Why? Well, first of all, the drummer plays differently. When a drummer, I mean, most of the time we're talking about amateur bands, right? We're not talking about high professional musicians. So when a drummer only plays the kick drum on its own and then only hits the snare after that on its own, he will many times hit it harder than he does when he's actually playing a groove. That's the first point. Secondly, the drummer has more fun just jamming away than just going goom, 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 tuck, tuck, tuck. And you have all the spill and crosstalk from the beginning. So I would start with the kick drum, just like everybody else. But after that, I will listen to my overheads with the entire kit being played, if I even need them. I mean, I talked about not needing overheads in very small environments in the drum miking video. Let's just say the room needs the overheads. Then this would be the first signals I would be listening to. What do the overheads give me? And with the overheads up, I will then listen to the snare, listen to the hi-hat, if I even need that microphone. And then it comes to tom-toms. And yeah, let's talk about tom-toms for a second. First of all, yes, I asked for the toms to be played individually because it's obviously when the drummer is just playing anything with drum fills in between, it's really hard to catch that hit on tom 1 that you need. So I will ask him to play the toms separately with the overheads up. But talk about toms, there's some specialty about it. Let's face it, many drummers do not know how to tune very well. It's just a fact. And I see people working on tom 1 for 5 minutes trying to make this badly tuned tom still sound good. And it never works. It never happens. So you should really develop this awareness to hear in the first few seconds that this tom is badly tuned. One way to handle it would be, depending on your relationship, to ask the drummer if he could tune it better. But then again, if he didn't do it anyway, then he's probably not capable of it. So just let it go. Bring out the attack a little bit and keep the toms a bit lower in the mix. You will not be able to make badly tuned toms sound any good. There's just no way. So now you have the drummer play the entire kit again, including the toms. And in case everybody else is still on stage, then maybe ask them to join in and have a little jam, which most of the time works really well because most of the time the bass player will be the first one to join in and then the others will join in. And that way you can build your mix while they're jamming away. And after that, you can have them play a few of their songs. Last point, also very crucial, often overlooked. The last thing you want to ask for at Soundcheck is to play the beginning of the show, to give you a good starting point, to the point where you have heard all the signals that happen in the first song. So you know what kind of keyboard sounds is introduced at the beginning. You know how the singer comes in. Does he come in with a soft line or does he come in very loudly? You have everything set up, got a good balance together. And this way you have the best possible start for the show. And you are more prepared for anything that can happen when the show starts. So that's it for Soundchecks. If you need to know more, if I forgot anything, just please let me know in the comments. And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe. So with that said, that's it for this video. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.